grabbing the bar.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to our MV webinar, where we are basically going to discuss and present some ideas and hopefully generate some discussion around the options of university or apprenticeships when students have completed their level 3 qualifications. So I'm just going to take you through a few slides and then I'm going to introduce you to the panel that we've got this evening, who are 3 MV alumni and hosted by myself, Natasha Roberts, who most of you will know. I'm assistant head at MV and I oversee all the career support that we offer as part of our programme and take advantage of as much support from our alumni, hence this event this evening. Okay, so life after MV. There has always been, as you all will have heard me say, a very traditional route that A-level students go to university. And if I was presenting something like this sort of 5 to 10 years ago, you'll see by my data on my next slide, I would have been talking sort of 85% of students traditionally going on to university. Within the last sort of 7 to 8 years, we've seen the growth of the apprenticeship route, and especially within the last 3 to 4 years, extra funding being put in and a real drive nationally to get young people to consider that apprenticeships are an alternative to university. And there's even talk over the next few years that UCAS might be opening up some sort of apprenticeship application process. And UCAS, as the university central admission system, are seriously promoting apprenticeships as an alternative, because obviously a lot of the higher and degree ones then have the education side hosted through a university. So my slide here also just references the growth of the gap year. This is something we've really seen post-COVID. And that we are seeing for a number of reasons. This is not just MV, this is national, and it is a case that students are really wanting to take their time to decide what they really want to do. The apprenticeships, which are becoming so popular as a route, do take quite a process to apply for, and Ollie will tell us more about that during the course of the webinar. But there's no doubt that it's quite a tricky process to be doing while you're finishing your A-levels. So that's one of the reasons why there's been the growth. But then also, as Sam will explain, because he had a gap year, there's also the growth of the gap year for students really wanting to make sure that they are going off to do the right university course, saving some money, doing some travelling, and especially, as Sam will explain, his course is quite a few years, making sure that they are fresh and ready for that next stage of their study. Okay, so that's the data. I'm not going to read through it. You can see it there. But that is definitely a downward trend for university, a growing trend for apprenticeships and gap year. And where I have employment there, we do have a fair number of students who go on to employment that has training. So, for example, going on to finance employment and doing chartered management qualifications doesn't necessarily fall under an apprenticeship. So that's hence the employment. But also students will go to employment that doesn't necessarily require level 3 qualifications and continue training in different fields there. That's typically where MV students are heading off to. Leeds is a favourite as one of the Russell Group universities. So Sam is currently sitting in Sheffield and he's here with us this evening. James is currently in one of his study rooms at London School of Economics, so he's down in London this evening. And Ollie is in his Mondelez offices over in Birmingham. And then I'm here in Melton Mowbray. But basically what we've got there is a real spread of where students head off to. So all the way down to that far corner of Cornwall with Falmouth, all the way up to St Andrews and Edinburgh. But there's definitely an East Midlands and Yorkshire trend that we see at MV. And I just thought I'd post up, that is just a snapshot. There are many other companies, but that represents, there's an MV alumni currently in every single one of those companies doing either a higher or a degree apprenticeship. So there's some names that we should all recognise there, some global names, in fact, when we look at people like KPMG, Dyson, John Deere, Mondelez. In fact, quite a few of them now have started to say that. This is one of my favourite slides. I've been using it for quite a few years, so you might have seen it before. So the levels up at the top, we know that A levels and BTECs that we offer at MV are all level 3. GCSEs were level 2. I think this is quite a nice comparison because higher apprenticeships are incredibly valuable. So a higher apprenticeship is that in between level 4 that you can't actually do anything at university that's a level 4. The first thing you can do at university is a level 5, which would be a foundation degree. And then to achieve a bachelor's is a level 6. To study on to a master's is a level 7. So what's really interesting is some of the degree apprenticeships do give master's qualifications. The highers are that stepping in between, and there are such qualifications as HNDs at universities. That would be the level 5, which is similar to the foundation. And I know my figures are a bit out of date there, that tuition fees are actually a little bit higher now. But you can see that comparison there. Obviously, the tuition fees with an apprenticeship, and Ollie will explain about this, are covered by your employer. I think it's really important that we get across tonight what sort of university degree to choose. And there is also a national trend that young people should be considering ones that give them the opportunity to gain work experience. Whether that's something called a whole sandwich degree, which means you have a year in industry, or whether it's the opportunity to support with internships and different work placements. But that is something that I personally are really encouraging students to do. And Sam and James will mention that. There's also, they're pretty hard to come across, but there's also something called a company sponsored degree. Some of the big 4 financial institutes have done this for MV students in the past. There are some out there for master's levels. So it's quite common in the arts fields for master's students to gain a company sponsored degree. So that is being at university, doing all the studying, but having the tuition fees a contribution, or at least or maybe fully paid. And the other thing, just mentioned salary, actually, a lot of the higher and degree apprenticeships are, when it says at least national minimum apprenticeship wage, a lot of them are significantly higher than that. And it is expected that when students do a sandwich degree that they will get payments there. And then my final slide is a bit of a plug, really. There's been a trend, this is national again, not just MV, that students aren't doing as many open days as they used to. I personally am concerned about that, because when choosing a university, it is about getting a feel of the campus, getting a feel of the location, whether that's a city, or just getting a feel of the transport networks to be able to get there. So for those of you that are logging on that are year 12, because obviously I've got 2 different year groups that can be joining or listening to this, it is really important to get out there and ask the questions. And many students have really discovered what they want to study at university, even course-wise, by getting out on those open days. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that and introduce my panel for this evening. So we have got, I know this will depend on how you are viewing it, but hopefully if you've got it on speaker view, you will be able to see the 4 of us as we speak. So Ollie, can I ask you in your Mondelez office to introduce yourself, please, first of all, to the audience?
Okay, good evening all. Thank you for joining us. So my name's Ollie Sharp. I'm doing an engineering degree apprenticeship. So I'm based here in Birmingham, our heritage Cadbury site, but it's not just Cadbury brands I get to work with. So some of your fan favourites of Cadbury's, Toblerone, Oreo, Milka, Coke d'Or, the list goes on. I get to work on products with all of that, from recipe changes down to new ideas development to looking at new different technologies. I have a degree that's fully funded by the the lovely company. The logo's a bit skew with behind me, and then they sent me to Aston. And yeah, we're here to answer some questions for you guys tonight and give you an education on what I get up to and my opinion on apprenticeships and how we can compare that to the uni side with our other two.
Okay, super, thank you. So Ollie's currently, Ollie left MV literally in 2024, and he'll talk us through a little bit on how he applied for his apprenticeships and kind of making that decision to go that rather than university. Okay, Sam, would you introduce yourself, please? Thanks.
Hello, I'm Sam Dryle. I'm at Sheffield, just currently doing my master's in architecture and landscape architecture. I left MV in 2018, and yeah, I'm in my first year, my master's course, and I've got one more year after that.
Okay, could you very just quickly, for those people who don't know a lot about architecture, just explain the timeline and the process and what you did when you first left MV, just very briefly?
Yeah, so when I first left MV, I went and did a year out traveling. So that involved me going traveling abroad and doing some work back home, and really taking the time to think about what I wanted to do and study at university and what career and sort of area within employment that I wanted to go down. And that led to architecture and landscape architecture. So that consisted of 3 years in undergrad studying at Sheffield, and then I decided to take 2 years out working in London and in Leamington Spa and back home in Melton Mowbray for various practices, architecture and garden design practices, just to really gain more experience, get that underneath my belt, and then apply to university back at Sheffield to do my master's. So yeah, the experience and the work experience was definitely needed in order for me to get back onto the master's course.
Am I right in saying that to be a fully qualified architect, you have to have that work experience anyway?
Yeah, so that's part of the sort of RIBA, which is the governing body for architecture. So they state that you have to have a set criteria, set number of years of work experience.
Okay, so the reason why I've invited Sam along this evening is because when he was applying to university, would we say that you very much had it as a career focus, didn't you? You knew that there was a
Yes.
particular profession that you wanted to enter, and you took some time to decide and really have your gap year to make sure that was the right commitment and the right route. Because it's really 7 years, isn't it, that you're doing?
Yeah, 7 long years. Yeah.
But you look like you're enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, most definitely.
Okay. Right. Thanks, Sam. We'll come back to you. Okay, James, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. So I left MV in 2021, and I'm in my 4th and final year at the London School of Economics, studying a degree in Chinese language. I spent last academic year living and studying in Shanghai as a part of my year abroad, which was it was a pretty amazing experience. And yeah, I'm back in London for my final year, and I graduate in summer.
Okay, so the reason why I've asked James along is because he's a good. We've just seen a London bus go by. It's very authentic out the window. So it's just a lovely contrast to Sam. So James, would I be right in saying that when you arrived at MV, you didn't have any career idea, whereas Sam kind of half had an idea of architecture?
No, I had no career idea at all when I left MV. I very much went into uni with the idea that I will do something that I love, and count on fate to land me somewhere where I'd end up enjoying it still, because I didn't really know, and I wanted to keep learning a skill, and learn a skill that was going to put me in a position to be employed, really. And yeah.
Yeah, so we've got the contrasting view here, really, of going to university because there is a profession where you require to have that study. I mean, Sam's is different. Some require graduate study. Sam's requires master's study as well. Whereas James choosing to go to university to almost work out where things might take him, but knowing that you love learning and keeping going with your languages being your theme. You had never studied Mandarin before, had you?
No. So my course at uni was Mandarin from scratch. but I'd studied different languages before.
Yeah. So the idea is to be at university and almost be doing what A-level students are also doing now, with having that career support, and discovering what you want to do while you're at university.
Yeah, completely. And it's very just much about sort of following the pattern of doing what I'm keeping to do, and then almost discovering jobs whilst I'm here, because there are so many jobs that I've realised exist now that I didn't know existed when I was in year 13, and having exposure, obviously being in London, to those sorts of companies that can offer those jobs, and yeah, just opening my eyes really to where to
And
work.
have you, I mean, I know the answer, but you've secured a graduate job?
Yes, yeah. I applied to a lot of graduate schemes and graduate jobs starting in this year, as the recruitment round, really, the milk round, starts in September and it follows all the way through to the end of the year. But I secured a graduate role at Gartner, which is the world leading research advisory firm working with clients in account management.
Okay.
So
it's universities help you kind of see where that degree, the grad jobs that are available.
Yeah.
Just tell us what the milk round is.
A milk round is just the round of applying to jobs, and it's just the recruitment process.
Yeah, it's the phrase used with graduate employment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So going back to Ollie, why an apprenticeship and why not uni? Ollie Sharp?
Starting as soon as I came to MV, uni was never a big fan of me. I didn't really think that it aligned with where I wanted to go in the future, and having a look at the opportunities that exist, especially in the engineering field. I was lucky enough quite early to have experience with Mars Pet Care, so I had a really defined that I wanted to do engineering and I wanted to go into this industry. And you could get a degree, but you're going to end up in the same place 4 years later anyway and still be needing that experience. So why not get a nice cheeky salary, no debt, and get to work in a company like this where there's probably free chocolate literally around the corner.
Okay, you can see why I've invited Ollie along, just to kind of tell it as it is. But what's really interesting is you knew engineering. How did you know you wanted to do engineering? I mean, does that even go back to your days in high school, or?
Sort of. I've been a very creative person. I learn with my hands, so the actual definition of that is like kinesthetic, and I problem solve by taking stuff apart, and always had that curious mindset. But I was like, engineering had some experience, so what I can only recommend the most is just going through different industries and getting a few days or a week's experience and seeing, does this fit me? Is this something I can be good at? And is this something I personally enjoy? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be doing a career for a hell of a long while. So you might as well find something that you actually truly have passion for and you truly love, and something that you can thrive in.
Okay, can you tell us about your kind of typical, what you're doing then, work-wise, uni-wise? How does it all fit together? What would a maybe typical week or typical month look like?
Yeah, a typical week is it's different. Every week is different. I could be learning our pilot plant equipment, so we've got a smaller scale version of our factory that can produce all of our bars. So it's learning the different equipment from chocolate making, and you may be like, well, isn't the whole process chocolate making? But you actually have to make the liquid chocolate from the bean, and then learning depositing technologies. So how you guys see it, you don't just get melted chocolate served to you guys, you get it in bars. So how we then mold that. So it's learning all of that side of thing. I then get access to a massive network of contacts. Is what 91,000 staff in the business, and I can have that time. And so today I've probably spent an hour talking to two different people. One was Grenade R&D, so the massive protein bar company, their head of R&D. We've also got a senior VP, so talking to different people, learning about the business from a bigger whole and not just engineering, and also looking at new emerging technologies. So some days I could have the VR goggles on and walking around like a zombie, doing training courses in there or doing CAD. So I get access to a wide range of things, but it's as much as you want to do. So I could just do the baseline job of learn the equipment, or you can learn more, speak to different people, and have a wide range of opportunities for you to get at. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
and then uni is I'm on block release, so 8 weeks this year is dedicated fully to uni. So I'll be there for the week. We're there 10 till 3, which is quite nice. The company then gives me their lovely shiny card, which they then pay for lunch, pay for my transport to get there. So it's basically like learning, but sort of on your terms and in more of a relaxed environment. But the workload is high and the workload is hard, but it's to be expected when they're paying for a degree and a salary for me to do that.
So you've still got to complete the university projects, the assignments, the essays, whatever it is in engineering, in the same way that James and Sam have got to do at university.
Exactly the same as what they guys have to get up to. It's just that I get 20% of my time at work. So work have to actually give me 20%. So it could be every Friday, but it depends on the block where I have to dedicate to doing the uni work. And like you mentioned, lab reports, essay writing, exam questions, I still have to do them, but it could be in my own time, but it's debt free. So it's still the same qualification, still the exact same course. It's just that most of the time I'm learning in the industry, and what I learn at work is a lot different to what I learn at uni, and it's more applicable to future careers.
And just really quickly before I move on to the uni students, how many companies did you apply for? When did you start? I mean, and I know that you were offered a few. How did you narrow it down to Mondelez?
Okay, so I applied for 27, and that's, some people may be like, that's a lot. But when you're thinking you're competing against every single person that is your age and plus in the country, they're very low. The acceptance rates are unfortunately lower than Cambridge and Harvard, because they are paying for the degree. It's something like 1 in 800 for the position I'm currently in. And finding these, you've just got to go on Indeed, search degree apprenticeships. You could either search by location if you want to stay local, or you could put degree apprenticeships England if you're not fussed about moving places. Like you mentioned, I did have a few offers, so I had 4 offers. One for these guys, one for AWE, so making nuclear weapons, one for Barclays Banking, doing their digital tech side of things, and one to make nuclear submarines. So very wide ranged, but Mondelez has the best global opportunities because it is such a big brand. So after my 4 years, I very much will be taking up travel opportunities. I will be working with our big brands like Oreo out in Canada and Mexico. And it just gives me a less of a glass ceiling compared to nuclear weapons. And who doesn't love working with chocolate? Like, if I was to describe my job to a 13-year-old, it is literally what I would think Willy Wonka gets up to on the daily. Like, it is so varied, and Oompa Loompas get to see them doing their things as well.
All right, thanks. Okay, James, could you just tell us what it's like when you first arrive at university? What's it like compared to being a first year, compared to being a fourth year? Just a little bit about uni life, because the big thing that I always hear students say is, well, I want to go to uni because I want the uni life. What is it really like? What was it like in London?
I think the uni life that is what is thought to be the uni life is kind of the first year life. And I think Sam would agree with that, where you're going to your classes, but outside of your classes, it's chilling, partying, meeting new friends, trying and failing to cook yourself dinner, all of that stuff. And then I think as you get into your second, third, and final year, or second, final year, if you don't do a year abroad, that's when you start to realise that actually you're at uni to find employment at the end of it, and everything becomes a little bit more serious. I think as well, in terms of different unis, it's a very different attitude to what university life is. I think LSE has particularly bad press about having a social life, and the hours that is the norm to be put into work, and how intense it is in terms of looking for internships or looking for graduate opportunities. So I think uni life is very varied depending on the university, but it is something that is very much a first year thing, and you grow out of it, and you start to then realize that you've got to get your head down and do a little bit of work. And I think lots of people go to uni with the idea that it's going to be a 4-year long thing, and at the end you pick up your degree, you get handed a job, and you go off into the real world.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how many jobs you've applied for, and a little bit about work experience, because obviously you've been studying but you've been working as well. Tell us a little bit, just to compare to Ollie, about internships, what you've done in summer holidays, opportunities uni's provided for you.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate in the fact of LSE have a humongous careers department that they're really keen on sort of getting everyone an internship in first year. So then by the time you get to your penultimate year and final year summers, you can be applying for really competitive internships. So I was, in a sense, given an internship in first year, which was a consultancy firm working in their marketing department. And then in my second year, before I went away to Shanghai, I worked in the operations department of a social mobility startup in London, which was then another internship that I had under my belt and more exposure to sort of what the working world looks like and what departments I could work in. And then on returning back from Shanghai, I interned at LSE itself in a research position, just to see what research was like in terms of the fact of would I want to continue on to a master's, would a PhD be something that I was looking to eventually progress into to then work in a research position. I completed the research internship. It didn't stand out as something that I loved. So I think using those summers has been something that's been really important to be able to realize what doors I want to open for myself and what doors I'm willing to close. And I applied for 65 jobs this year so far, and yeah, it's pretty brutal when you're going up against the rest of the country. Thankfully, I'm in a situation where LSE careers are really helpful in terms of making sure that you're prepared for every interview at every assessment centre. But yeah.
Yeah, I think and I think what's really interesting is the process that you've gone through for assessment centres applying for grad jobs is actually not that dissimilar of what young people are doing, like Ollie did in year 13. You know, when I mean, I've spoken to the panel prior to us when we've been prepping this webinar, and there were some real similarities in terms of the assessment. And actually, Ollie, I think you said that Mondelez have told you that they're actually looking for a lot of the same in their grads as they are doing for their undergrads for the same roles. Is that what I think that's what you said to me, wasn't it?
You're absolutely correct there. The process that you go through to apply for the apprenticeships is pretty much, especially here at Mondelez, and the same with a lot of the other companies as well, it is near identical, the process you do have to go through. So I'll give you a quick rundown of the process. So
yeah, really quickly, and then we'll go
initial application that you've got to bang your CV in. You maybe have to answer a few questions. After that, you'll do your lovely best friend called psychometric testing. That's like a set of online testing, could be game, personality, work-based, English language, maths-based, or all of them. Depends how nice the company is. Mondelez made me do all of them. That can take 1 to 2 hours. Then you have your interview stages, then you get brought into assessment centres, and then maybe more interviews, and then you potentially get a job offer. We run a near identical scheme that we take our apprentices for to what we do with the grads. And a point I also, if you don't mind me adding, is you mentioned people go to uni for the party life as well, and that it is very much a first year thing. But I get to do the exact same thing that them people get up to. It's just that I end up having more money in my bank account and end up having a bit of a better time because I can feed myself the day after because I'm not in crippling debt and with a massive hangover. Yes, I do have work, but it also means I have a salary. And like tonight's like this, we've got senior vice president with us that runs our business unit, and he's down the pub with us. So I will be very much there after this webinar. So you still do get that social life and do get that aspect, just without the crippling debt and fear that you're going to have baked beans in the morning.
Okay, let's talk about, I feel like we're on question time. Let's talk about crippling debt. Okay, so James, when will you be paying back, and how will you be paying back this student loan now you've got your grad job lined up? How's it going to work?
So my graduate job pays more than £27,000 a year, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is the minimum.
I think they've dropped it slightly, but yes, it's around 25 to 27. You have to start paying back your student loan. Yep.
So I will start chipping my way through my near £80,000 debt in September.
Say it quickly.
And I don't know how much I'm going to be paying per month. I haven't dared to do a calculation, but I don't think I'm going to be paying it off very quickly.
Right. Okay. Well, I do know the maths behind it because
Okay.
this is what I advise students on. You are probably, I mean, I don't know your exact salary. I'm not going to ask you that, but you're probably going to be paying maybe 40, 45 pounds a month. And you will have never seen that money. I don't know why the government aren't brave enough to call it a graduate tax, because basically it's just another tax going to go out your pay packet that you've never seen. Now, back in the day, student loans were actually brought out the year I left university, sort of in about 94, I think. And then we used to actually pay a direct debit out of our bank accounts. It's all different now. And if you haven't paid it back by the time you are in your 50s, I can't remember the exact age, it's actually written off as a debt. And you don't start paying it back until you get that threshold. So that is the fact with student loans. You are paying it off, but you're paying off it in small chunks over many, many years, and it's not taken into consideration as your credit rating. So it's never taken into consideration with that, but banks would take it into consideration as a monthly figure when they're looking at your pay, but it's already gone off, just like your pension contribution or your tax, your national insurance, that sort of thing. Can you just really quickly, I know it's not really about grad jobs tonight, but how does that differ, what Ollie just said about the process to maybe your interviews that you've had?
Well, the process is near enough identical. For the roles that I was applying for, a lot of the roles required you to be bilingual or trilingual. So I had quite a few intensive language testing days for several roles, going to companies' offices, completing written, spoken, and grammar comprehension language tests, and interviews. I ended up having 7 interviews for Gartner that were sentence stages. So they'd interview 100 people and then 50 would move on. And then you got through. So I ended up having 7-hour-long interviews for Gartner, which was incredibly time consuming to think that I could have not gotten the role, as I have with many other ones where I've invested lots of time into interviews and assessment days and testing. So
yeah. Okay, Sam, let's talk to Sam. Sam, tell us a little bit about why you didn't jump straight into uni then. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So yeah, so one of the reasons why I didn't go straight into uni was because I felt like I wanted a break away from education, just to fully figure out what I really wanted to do, with my life. Obviously, education, you're there when you're 4 or 5 years old, and it's a big part of your junior life. But then you've also got your life post education, which is also a very long time. So I really wanted to figure out what career path, what career route I wanted to go down. But also, I thought that I wanted to explore more of the world. Have the opportunity to make memories, meet other people from across the other side of the world, and yeah, just really, it sounds weird, but just like take some time away, take a chill pill, just do a bit of relaxing before starting. And that would basically happen because I knew that I figured out that I wanted to do architecture, which is a really long, rigorous sort of career at university, 7 years down the line. So part of me at MV16, when I was thinking about that, was thinking, okay, in 7 years' time, I'm going to be 25, 26, and then I'm going to have to start getting back into work. And so I really wanted to have the opportunity to explore and travel to these locations before that. Yeah.
So you could commit. So it's not dissimilar actually to our students that go on to decide to do medicine actually. With that commitment, and it is that professional qualification where they really do want to see that you're committed. So you did your degree, and then in your 2 years, so I know you were down in London with a company, that was like a paid job, was it? Tell us a little bit about that.
So both of the jobs that I did were paid, and I did see money go out for paying my student loan back, and yeah, they both paid jobs. The company didn't they wouldn't pay for university. So some companies in architecture, the larger ones, would pay or contribute to you going back to your master's degree. So they will pay for your master's tuition fees, in the hope that, well, some companies do it differently, where it's part of a contract that you go to university and then return back to their company afterwards. But I didn't go to a larger company, so I didn't have that offer brought to the table.
Okay. And what would you say to people that are really, because this is really interesting, because architect apprenticeships are just starting to come out.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that is thinking about architect? There are not many of them. There are not like engineering and finance and marketing, and there's loads out there for students to choose. But what would you say somebody who's trying to choose between the two? What would you say now?
It's hard. I think from hearing Ollie's situation and the financial situation, that is very appealing for students, and I completely understand that. But I'm a big believer that for university gives students and young people that freedom to sort of discover more about themselves, to meet more people. You meet friends for life. I've met people at university that I would class as friends for life, compared to people that I've gone throughout primary school and secondary school. So you meet a wide range of different types of people, and I think for me as well, university and specifically architecture, working with people on projects and having that freedom to do these creative projects, whereas I feel like apprenticeships might limit you to company constraints. But that's very specific to architecture. I don't know the situation with engineering or for the financial degrees apprenticeships. Yeah, I'm a big believer that at least trying university and going through that journey is was very important for my early career.
Yeah. James, what would you say, looking back now as you finished, some of the highlights have been of university life?
I think that definitely one of the biggest highlights was my year abroad in Shanghai. Living on the other side of the world was very much, as much as I was at uni at the same time, I feel like I reaped the same rewards that Sam did from his gap year whilst I was over living in China. I think as well, I have always loved school. I've always loved learning, and to be a very academically rigorous institution day in, day out has been something that I've really enjoyed. I can't have imagined being able to learn Chinese from scratch anywhere else. And I think especially with language degrees, being able to build up those skills is something that needs to happen inside a classroom. And a lot of time inside a classroom, I had lots more contact hours than lots of my friends. But it was worth it because I can bring lots of skills into the workplace. Ultimately, that's what it's for.
Yeah. And what would you say, sort of what Sam said in terms of learning to live away from home? I mean, I know that Ollie is doing that with during his apprenticeship. He's flat sharing, but that kind of meeting people, lifelong friends. I mean, that's what a lot of us who went to university back in the day will always say is the strengths of kind of life experience. Do you think that still rings true?
Definitely. I think it definitely rings true. I think something that is very specific, I think, to LSE is that lots of people go on and do economics, politics, finance degrees, and the industry connections that I'll have in 4 years' time of people my own age split across the whole of the city in London, working in lots of different firms, is going to be insane. And I think that that's something that I'll really enjoy from taking from uni, being able to expand my network of young professionals working in London.
Yeah, and obviously that's something very specific to your university and being in London. And of course, that's what Ollie's doing at work, building that network immediately. Okay, what I want to do now, because that is sort of 45 minutes, is just kind of open up the chat. But we haven't got many people online. I think a lot of people listen to the recording. So I am actually going to change the settings so that our I'm going to allow the mic and the cameras for everybody. I hope that does work. So if anybody did want to verbalise rather than put in the chat, but if anybody's got any questions, I'm just going to go onto the chat, and between us, we will try and answer them. So I don't know if anybody wants to ask anything. Got any questions? Tom is putting a question in.